Good morning. My name is Robert Basic. I serve as first counselor to President Brian Bruff of the Massachusetts Boston Mission of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm here at the Hartford, Connecticut Stake Center this morning with my good friend and historian, Earl Stone. Earl and I share a great love for Wilford Woodruff, the fourth president of the church, who was born and raised here in Farmington, Connecticut. As a missionary, Wilford Woodruff baptized at least 1,800 converts. Some accounts say as many as 2,000. I can imagine how easy it would be to lose track after 1,800. Over the past half century, Earl has taken thousands of people on tours of Wilford Woodruff history sites. This video will capture a summary of the high points of those tours. Thank you, Earl, for once again taking your time to share your extensive research on this incredible leader of the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Hello, my name is Earl Stone, and I will be your guide for today's tour of some of the sites in the early life of Wilford Woodruff. My family joined the church on December 31st, 1960, when I was 14 years old. Fast forward to the 1980s, when I completed my graduate studies in history with a study of the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Connecticut. Over the next 40 years, through research of many documents, books, maps, and records, and conversations with several generations of Wilford's descendants, I've been blessed and privileged to have found some of the places Wilford lived, worked, walked, and attended school. It has been an honor to have shown these sites to thousands of church members, including on one occasion, 116 Woodruff family members, and to share stories and documents about this great church leader born here in Connecticut. I hope you will enjoy this journey through Wilford Woodruff's Farmington and beyond. As we begin this video tour of some of Wilford Woodruff's early life locales, we start at the memorial placed in Fisher Meadows, Avon, in his honor in 1998. The inscription on the plaque briefly describes some of the details of his life from his birth on March 1st, 1807, in a section of Farmington then known as Northington, now in Avon, Connecticut. Through his early years in Farmington, going to school and working in mills, his baptism into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on December 31st, 1833, his various missionary and church leadership experiences, including being sustained as president of the church in 1889 to his death on September 2nd, 1898. The last sentence on the plaque says, "Of all his many accomplishments and personal characteristics, he was, most of all, a humble man of God." We now go a short distance to the west to see the remains of the saw and grist mill from pictures in Matthias Cowley's book, Wilford Woodruff, and in which Wilford worked as a youth. The remains of the sluiceway or mill race are still visible, as are some of the stone foundation works. Wilford's home was across the street from the mill, but no longer exists. Only an indentation in the ground remains after the structure burned to the ground in the early 1900s, and as the woods reclaimed the plot. These are three photos of Wilford's birth home on the cover of the September 1892 Contributor Magazine, Volume 13, Number 11, in which there is an article about Wilford Woodruff's life in Connecticut by Junius F. Wells. Both the home and the saw and grist mill are on posted private property. Going a little farther west, we see the home of Wilford's maternal and paternal grandparents in Avon, but as with his own home, at the time of his youth, his grandparents' homes were in Farmington. Wilford's mother, Beulah Thompson Woodruff, was the daughter of Lot and Anna Thompson, who lived in this Georgian-style architecture home. The Thompsons were, and their descendants remain, a well-respected family in the community. Wilford's mother died when he was less than 18 months old. His father, Afek, remarried about a year and a half later. During those interim months, much of the daily care of young Wilford was provided by his paternal grandmother, Dinah Woodruff, who, with her husband, Eldad Woodruff, lived a couple of miles from the Thompson and Afek homes. Eldad's home was recently demolished. The photo seen here was taken prior to that demolition. The photo you see below of Wilford's birthplace was taken for inclusion in the 1892 contributor article mentioned previously. Lot and Anna Thompson, Eldad and Dinah Woodruff, Beulah Thompson Woodruff, and a number of other family relations are buried in the West Avon Congregational Church Cemetery. As you view the gravesite of maternal grandparents Lot and Anna Thompson, the plain and simple stones have these inscriptions. Lot Thompson died March 7, 1836, age 84. Anna, wife of Lot Thompson, died September 27, 1839, age 83. You'll notice the different spelling of their surnames. The gravestones are Thompson, Thomson, while the street signs and other references in the contributor and other resources show the spelling as Thompson. The same is the case with the spelling of Wilford's mother, Beulah. The gravestone shows Bulah, while other sources read Beulah. Walking to the left and in the same row as Lot and Anna is the gravestone of their daughter and Wilford's mother, Beulah. I knew where to look for Lot and Anna and for Eldad and Dinah Woodruff, but I was unaware that Wilford's mother was buried in this cemetery and was only walking to Eldad's gravesite. As I walked, I had a feeling that I should pay attention to the graves as I passed them. The feeling grew stronger as I continued to walk until I was impressed to stop and pay more attention to the marker in front of me. I had goosebumps as I read, quote, "In memory of Mrs. Beulah, wife of Mr. Afek Woodruff, who died June 11, 1808, aged 25 years, unquote." The epitaph continues, "A pleasing form, a generous heart, a good companion, just without art, just in her dealings, faithful to her friend, beloved through life, lamented in the end." I don't know if it was her spirit, her parents, or Wilford's that literally led me to her gravesite, but I'm glad I felt and listened to that spirit. What a beautifully tender tribute. Moving a little farther left and then right to another row, we find the gravesites of Lieutenant Eldad and Dinah Woodruff, Wilford's paternal grandparents. Eldad was a lieutenant in the local unit of Connecticut militia. His marker is carved with representation of the Tree of Life and other designs and has the following inscription, quote, "In memory of Lieutenant Eldad Woodruff, who departed this life December 28, 1805, in the 58th year of his age." It continues, "Pity the weeping widow's woe, and be her counselor and stay. Adopt the fatherless, and smooth to useful happy life their way," unquote. Between Eldad's and Dinah's gravestones is a smaller marker that looks similar to Eldad's. I was told that it is a footstone originally placed opposite the headstone at the foot of the grave, and had been moved to the space between Eldad's and Dinah's headstones to make grass cutting easier. Adjacent to Eldad's is Wilford's grandmother, Dinah. The inscription reads, quote, "In memory of widow Dinah, wife of Eldad Woodruff, who died June 12, 1825, age 72, unquote. Eldad and Beulah died about 2.5 years apart, both of spotted fever. Eldad never saw his grandson, having passed well before Wilford's birth, and Beulah died while Wilford was still in his infancy, as mentioned earlier. Wilford's father, Afek, was baptized by Wilford along with several family members. Afek went with the saints to Utah and is buried in the Salt Lake City Cemetery. In a letter written to Junius Wells, the first head of the Young Men's Mutual Improvement Association and founder and publisher of the Contributor magazine for the church's young men and women, Wilford referred to some of the many accidents that he had experienced as a young man at or near his birthplace. Among them were a near drowning in the Farmington River, being buried under a wagon load of hay, being bitten by a mad dog in the last stages of hydrophobia, falling into a cauldron of hot water and going through a 9-month recovery from the burns, breaking an arm in a fall from the porch of his grandfather Thompson's home, a broken arm falling down the stairs in his home, trying to get away from a switch his father was using to punish him for playing on Sunday, and a broken leg after being thrown from a horse. He said by the time he was 17, he had both arms, both ankles, and both legs broken, but, quote, through the blessings of God and good surgical skill, they have done me good service up to the present time, unquote. Of these and other accidents in his life, Wilford wrote the following, quote, evidently, I have been numbered with those who are apparently the marked victims of misfortunes. It has seemed to me at times as though some invisible power were watching my footsteps in search of an opportunity to destroy my life. I therefore ascribe my preservation on earth to the watch care of a merciful providence, whose hand has been stretched out to rescue me from death when I was in the most threatening dangers, unquote. Wilford had a better than average education in his Connecticut Valley hometown. He attended common school until about age 14, which would have been about grade 8. His father, Afek, arranged with George Coles for Wilford to move in with Mr. Coles, who had agreed to send Wilford to school in the winter in exchange for Wilford working in the summers in the Farmington mill and at a farm owned by Mr. Coles. Wilford described the school as the, quote, prestigious Farmington Academy, unquote. The academy was for wealthy or notable families' children and taught such subjects as chemistry, geometry, philosophy, algebra, rhetoric, history, Greek and Latin, among others. Prayer and Bible reading opened and closed each school day. Wilford continued at the academy for 4 years and concluded his formal schooling at age 18. The building that was constructed for the academy in 1816, seen in this drawing and photo, has been moved 3 times over the years and is currently a multifamily home. According to Gail Palmer, in a newspaper article about the academy, following the years when it was used as a boys' school, the old academy building was sold to the First Church of Christ, which made it available to the community as a grange hall, a village library, a place for school entertainments, church suppers and Sunday school, and a church meeting house. In 1945, it was used for community recreation activities, and in 1976, the Art Guild was given permission to use it for art classes and exhibits. Town meetings were held in the building unless there were too many in attendance, in which case the meeting was moved to the First Church. The academy was used by both local and traveling entertainers. Missionary societies brought out several hundred on a Sunday evening, where in the same hall the night before, entertainment of a far different character had been offered. In the early 1900s, Theodate Pope Riddle, an American architect and philanthropist, nationally renowned and one of the first successful female architects, used the academy to teach any of the town's girls who wanted to learn sewing, making their own clothes, hospital clothes, and rug making. About 125 girls met for the various classes. The mill owned by George Coles no longer operates as a mill, but has housed a restaurant, artist studios, and a variety of small shops over the years. When it served as a restaurant, diners could view the Farmington River through the nearly floor-to-ceiling windows and were treated to some history as they looked up through the rafters and saw several of the wood and metal millworks that were laid across those beautiful beams. It was an especially colorful view in the fall with the various shades of red and yellow foliage. The restaurant served its last meal on the site on June 2nd, 2012. After extensive remodeling, the mill now serves as administration's office of Miss Porter School, an exclusive girls' school whose mission is to educate young women to shape the world in which they live. As we go from the former mill up Mill Street to Main Street, we see the First Church of Christ Congregational. The church was established in 1652. This building is the third building erected by the congregation and was designed and built by Judah Woodruff, Wilford's great uncle, in 1771. The spire of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Temple, 2 miles away, was loosely based on the first church's steeple. As you can see in the photo, a raised pulpit is ornately decorated with hand-carved vine and leaves of English ivy, which Judah worked on at night after returning home from the church construction site. The church building in 1975 was designated as a National Historic Landmark for its role in sheltering the Amistad Africans and for its prominent role in the Underground Railroad. Judah died about 8.5 years before Wilford's birth, thus never knew him, but I'm sure Wilford was well aware of Judah. Judah was famous for his skilled carpentry, original designs, and workmanship. During his life, he built 20 homes in Farmington. 2 were dismantled and reassembled in other towns. Another was dismantled in 2016 and will be reassembled to house a museum to him. With the exception of that one being stored, all the homes Judah built are still being lived in today. Judah was known to be a man of integrity, independent thought and action, a man of energy and persevering industry. The Reverend Timothy Pitkin, who officiated at his funeral, bore testimony to Judah's earnest piety. This sounds a lot to me like his great-nephew Wilford. Judah is buried in the Memento Mori Cemetery just south of the church. Not far from the church is Judah's home. When he returned from the French and Indian War, he built this home around 1760. It has been enlarged several times over the years, but it is an excellent representation of Georgian architecture, commonly referred to as 5-4 in the door. 5 windows on top, 4 windows on the bottom floor, and the door separating those 4. And the front doorway is a beautiful example of the Connecticut River Valley doorway architecture. The broken scroll or swan's neck pediment above the door is a distinctive feature of these high-style homes. As we near the end of this video tour, we go about 10 miles north to the town of Simsbury, Connecticut. The Simsbury Cemetery, located in the center of town, is where we see the gravestone of Robert Mason, also known as Father Mason and Old Prophet Mason to Wilford and others. Mason was a spiritual man who believed it was necessary to have prophets, apostles, revelations, and all the gifts and powers and blessings the same as in the ancient church. He frequently visited the Woodruff home, and they believed the things that he taught. Mason had many dreams and visions about things that were to come to pass in the last days. He often shared those things with the Woodruffs. In a vision he had in the year 1800, Mason saw an orchard grow, die, and grow again, with the finest fruit he had ever seen. As he reached for the fruit, the vision closed. When Mason asked for interpretation of the vision, the Lord explained that this was about the restoration of the gospel and the Church of Jesus Christ as it had been in ancient days. When Mason finished telling Wilford about this vision, he said, quote, "I shall never partake of this fruit in the flesh, but you will, and you will become a conspicuous actor in that kingdom," unquote. This conversation was in the spring of 1830, the same spring the church was organized. Wilford said in 1832, he and his brother Asmund and his sister-in-law Elizabeth moved from Farmington to Richland, Oswego County, New York. In late 1833, Wilford and his brother and sister-in-law met two missionaries from the church, read the Book of Mormon, and asked to be baptized. He was baptized on December 31st, 1833. Mason died before missionaries could teach him the gospel, but Wilford said that he went forth and was baptized for him after the revelation of baptism for the dead was revealed. You can see his grave is very hard to read. His name is carved in the stone and reads, Robert Mason died February 5th, 1835, age 86. The inscription below it reads, "Who shall mourn after the good depart? Who shall unintelligible, lost to unintelligible? He has gone to sleep till immortal day, when sorrow and sighing shall flee away." Returning to Farmington, we bring this tour to its end by seeing the Connecticut Hartford Temple dedicated November 20th, 2016. It was the 155th temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in operation worldwide, and the 55th since the dedication of the Boston Temple, which when it was dedicated in 2000 was the 100th temple in worldwide operation. The exterior of the Hartford Temple reflects the building styles of New England and traditional American Georgian architecture. As noted earlier, the spire is reminiscent of Farmington's First Church of Christ Congregational steeple, designed by Wilford's great-uncle Judah Woodruff. In its time, that steeple was considered one of the most beautiful steeples in all of New England. The entrance gates and brownstone walls of the temple are a nod to the area's historic designs, local quarrying, and agricultural activities. The interior design motif of oak leaf and acorn reflect the beauty of Connecticut's oak trees and historic Connecticut charter oak. The Hartford Temple was dedicated November 20th, 2016 by President Henry B. Eyring and is the second temple of the church built in New England. At the groundbreaking ceremony on August 17th, 2013, President Thomas S. Monson, then president of the church, said the following, quote, "Today is a special day. Each temple stands as a beacon to the world, an expression of our testimony that God, our eternal Father, lives, that he desires to bless us and indeed bless his sons and daughters of all generations," unquote. We are truly blessed by this temple and the ordinances performed within its walls. At the same time, we have been richly blessed by the life and legacy of Wilford Woodruff, who was known by his later life companions as the Banner of the Gospel.